Yes, Ramon, you got to hit record. Oh, there we go. So again, welcome to our City of Gaithersburg candidates, as well as the many other attendees, just so that everybody is clear again. So we have our 2 mayoral candidates and our 5 city council candidates. We also have members of our Kentlands Citizens Assembly Board of Trustees who are on, and John Ingracia, Mary McClung, Ken Dretchen, and David Hoffman. I serve currently as the KCA President. And just to make sure everybody is aware, we are recording. Our plan is to then download this and upload it onto YouTube so that you guys will be able to disseminate this video as well to constituents and throughout the city. So we'll hopefully have that ready to go by tomorrow. So as long as everybody is good with those ground rules, I have emailed the candidates. They know that they will be giving a 2-minute opening speech. And I sent them the order. We will start with the mayoral candidates, and then we will have about 60 minutes for some questions. I'm going to give 60 seconds per answer. And then we will finish with 90 seconds for closing statements. So everybody is still good with those ground rules? Terrific. Well, then let's get going. So we're going to start with current Mayor Judd Ashman with his opening statement.
All right, thank you so much to the KCA for hosting this forum. I'm Judd Ashman. I'm grateful to say I'm in my 7th year serving as Mayor of Gaithersburg. I literally wake up every day both proud and mindful of the responsibility our residents have invested in me, and I'm asking for your vote to continue in this role. Before I became mayor, I served 7 years on the city council, and I've actually been active in our community for more than 20 years. I know every neighborhood in Gaithersburg. I know City Hall inside and out, and I know how to build and lead a great team in order to get things done. Under my leadership with a terrific city council and staff, our local government has been really productive. We've made big strides in building our local economy, bringing thousands of job opportunities to the city, improving the health of our environment, adding to our transportation network, increasing our stock of affordable housing options, enhancing the safety and quality of life in our neighborhoods, and most recently, serving those in need during the pandemic. At the same time, we've maintained the lowest tax rate for any of Maryland's large cities. We remain debt-free, and citizen surveys reflect a high level of satisfaction with the services we provide. To borrow a phrase from Wall Street, I'd say people are bullish on Gaithersburg. And here are 5 key indicators. 1, people are looking to move into the city. 2, businesses are interested in opening and relocating here, as evidenced by a decrease in our office vacancies. 3, developers are looking to invest here. 4, parents are trying to get their kids into the schools here. And 5, property values are going up. Median home prices in the city have jumped from $327,000 to $431,000 in just the last 4 years. These are just a few of the reasons I believe Gaithersburg's on exactly the right track, and it's my job to keep us there. But it's not only what we do, it's how we do it. As your mayor, I am the caretaker of a proud tradition of civil, friendly governance. I've always believed that leadership begins with listening, and it's an honor to have the chance to embody those values. I'm asking for your support.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, that is 2 minutes.
Thank you.
I apologize. I should have mentioned everybody. Can everybody see me? They can see me, right? So I will give a 5-second. I'll give a 10-second, which I did not do to you, Mr. Mayor. My apologies for that. And then I'll give a 5 seconds. So Mr. Stephen Escobar, the other mayoral candidate, you have your 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name is Stephen Escobar. I hope everyone is doing well. Many of you might remember me from the Kentlands 5K as the runner with the American flag. I'm running for mayor for the city of Gaithersburg, the most diverse city in the country. Even though I'm not a career politician, I'm no stranger to public service. As a soldier in the Maryland Army National Guard, serving my community and the welfare of its citizens is always my first priority. As a son of immigrants, I understand the challenges that comes as a minority. My family immigrated from El Salvador back in the 1980s. I witnessed firsthand the struggles and challenges my family faced to provide a better life. As a result, I developed a strong work ethic, and I am currently serving as the elected president of the Bennington Community Association. I currently live there with my wife and my daughters. I will support local small business, diversify job growth with training programs, create support programs for veterans, improve infrastructure with smart growth, fight against global warming, and protect our city's wildlife and environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We will now move to our city council candidates. Mr. David Belgard will be first.
Hi, I'm Dave Belgard, and I'm running for city council. I want to thank the Kentlands residents and the KCA for hosting this, the very first candidates forum in this year's mayor and city council election. I've never been part of a candidates forum before, which makes sense because I've never run for an elected office. As a child, my parents taught me the importance of service, helping those in need, helping my communities, helping wherever I could and was able. I took this lesson to heart. It's been one of my guiding principles since. In college, I helped build a house with Habitat for Humanity. Over the years, I've donated and helped many other organizations that support those in need. During the pandemic, I've been privileged enough to work from home, and I found that I had the time to participate in numerous food distributions. Since 2015, I've served our city by working on various citizen advisory committees. And I currently sit on both the police and the community advisory committees. For my entire adult life, I've been committed to helping those in need and serving my communities. My parents taught me to help where I could and how much I was able. Well, I'm able to do more and I want to do more. I'm running for city council because I want to continue the good work that our council has done for our city. I want to ensure that our city continues to uphold its values and commitment to diversity, equity, and supporting and building up its residents. When the Kentlands was first built, it became a standard that other communities across the nation work to emulate. As Gaithersburg continues to grow, I want to ensure that we remain leaders in urban design and planning. I'm running for city council because I want to help make our great city even better. And because when my children are adults, I want them to be able to live and thrive in Gaithersburg just like I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. Next up is Mr. Phillip Cook.
Good evening. Thank you to Chris and to the Kentlands Citizens Assembly for hosting tonight's forum. This is a great opportunity for the voters to get to know all the candidates, and I'm super excited to be here. My name is Phillip Cook. I grew up in Hyattsville. I went to DeMatha Catholic High School. I've been living in Gaithersburg for 6 years now with my wife, Lily, and my 2-year-old son. The environment is super important to me. Conserving trees and green areas in the city and doing all that we can to reduce our carbon footprint. Redevelopment of Old Town and Lake Forest Mall are also very important. There's just so much potential there, and I would love to see it happen. But most importantly, I think we need more just regular everyday people on the city council. And that's why I'm running. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Next up is Miss Lisa Henderson.
Thank you to the KCA for hosting this event and providing an opportunity as candidates to meet the residents of Gaithersburg. My name is Lisa Henderson, and I'm a candidate for Gaithersburg City Council. The voters of Gaithersburg can measure my public service on many fronts. I have worked on local electoral campaigns. I have chaired issue campaigns at local and state levels, advocating for equal rights, and most recently served as a board member of a civic organization dedicated to influencing policy at the local, state, and federal levels. This is the kind of leadership and advocacy that I want to bring to Gaithersburg City Council. I want to lead from both a pragmatic and data-driven approach. As an information technology leader in a county government, I understand local government, the complexity of government fiscal structures, the financial challenges that serve public needs, and driving economic growth. As a designer and builder of large IT systems that serve the public safety sectors, I have deep knowledge of the legislative process and the tools like data analytics that can assist in maintaining safe communities. As your next council member, I will work to enhance and create opportunities to collaborate between business and government to drive economic growth in the city further. A byproduct of stable and thriving economy, such as Gaithersburg's, is the increasing need for sustainable, accessible, and affordable housing. I'm committed to working with the mayor and the council to meet this challenge head on. I look forward to this evening to not only answer your questions, but to hear from the concerns and the successes from the Gaithersburg City residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Yamil Hernandez.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Yamil Hernandez, and I'm running for City Council. Thank you to the KCA and for those attendees. We have a nice amount of people, almost 50 people here in the attendee list. I've been a resident in the community for over 5 years with my wife, Lise Marie, who's a member of the Kentlands Acoustic Jam, and our pup, Albus. I love the Kentlands, the community, our neighbors, and the events that we host. I'm an entrepreneur. I co-founded and run a life science company here in Montgomery County. I'm a former Coast Guard officer. I attended Montgomery College and the University of Maryland. I currently serve on the Up-County Citizens Advisory Board and the city's Animal Control Board. I joined the KCA as its treasurer and currently serve as your chair. Why am I running? I launched my campaign right here in the Kentlands, and I want to continue to serve my community in new and helpful ways. I have 3 priorities that I've outlined, which are number 1, sustainability and conservation, transparency and accountability, number 2, and number 3, modernization and simplification of city services. We're blessed with a lot of good candidates, and I want to give you reasons to vote for me, not against my opponents. I have a track record of performance here in the KCA, maintaining assessments and dues stable over the last, 5 years. We've launched new services and initiatives like the community composting program. We brought economic development toolbox money for our Main Street live work units through our advocacy to the city. We've just approved the installation and building of an EV station at our clubhouse. We've launched dog waste stations to the community through a survey and engagement process. And I'm very excited to have an opportunity to serve as your city council, a council member. I look forward to answering your questions tonight, and thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, sir. And finally, for the last opening statement, Mr. Jim McNulty.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, fellow candidates. It's an honor to be here with you all tonight. I too want to thank the KCA for providing this opportunity to discuss the issues. For me, this election is about helping to create opportunity, expanding representation, and providing proven leadership. Gaithersburg already has a world-class biotech corridor, and we need to make our city even more attractive to other industries looking to invest in a well-educated workforce like Gaithersburg offers. We also need to support our small business community and entrepreneurs struggling to survive this pandemic and expand the scope and reach of our toolkit programs. We also need to fulfill the vision of the newly passed Lake Forest Master Plan and help facilitate an agreement among the 5 owners to realize the generational opportunity our city has to reimagine this 102-acre crown jewel in waiting. In order to do that, we need a voice in the council that actually lives near the mall and understands the opportunities and the challenges that surround redevelopment and can be a voice for those who already live nearby and are already invested in that area's success. So much of our national discourse the past few months has surrounded voting rights, redistricting, and gerrymandering. We rightly hear that representation matters. Even at the county level, we hear the lament of up-county voters who feel underrepresented on the county council. Here in the city, I would become the only elected member of the Gaithersburg government who lives east of I-270. That's roughly half our population on the east side of the city, and we could get shut out. That's a big reason why I'm running, to provide proven leadership. As the president of the Saybrook HOA, I regularly had to balance competing interests together with our board and made tough decisions to benefit our community. I want to bring my pragmatic, practical approach to city council. Together, we can bring a new voice to Gaithersburg. Thank you again for having me, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. I appreciate all of your opening statements. So now, for those who are also watching this, we have solicited a number of questions, many of which we will not get to, from throughout the community. Some may be given to just the 2 mayoral candidates, some may be given to just the council candidates, or some may be given to all 7 of you. We are going to begin, we'll reverse order for the mayoral candidates. So we'll begin with Mr. Escobar, followed by Mr. Ashman. Gaithersburg is a great city and a great place to live. Still, we can always do better. What do you see as some of the most significant problems or greatest challenges facing our city today that you would like to work towards improvement on? So Mr. Escobar, you have 1 minute. Oop, you're muted.
Thank you very much for that question. It's a very important question. What I see as the biggest challenge here in the city of Gaithersburg is eliminating that east side, west side Gaithersburg mentality that is being thrown around. I look to bring east side and west side together as much as possible. I look to revitalize the small business in Old Town, and also looking forward to the redevelopment of Lake Forest. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ashman, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, actually, this is going to be kind of boring because I agree entirely. I think our biggest imperative is revitalizing the east side of Gaithersburg. The city's taken a lot of steps to help get us there. In the 14 years I've been in office, we instituted an enterprise zone in Old Town. Now we have an opportunity zone. We have our toolkit programs. We have a lot of as robust a set of economic incentives as we could put together. And we are seeing a momentum of investment activity in Old Town and on the east side. It makes me very happy. I'm also very optimistic about the Lake Forest Master Plan update we just passed. I think it's going to help us get somewhere down the road toward a grade A project redevelopment when that's ready. And I'll stop there. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will send the same question to all 5 council candidates in reverse order that they gave their opening statements. So Jim McNulty, if you could begin.
Thank you, Chris. And I agree with Mayor Ashman and with Stephen. The east side, particularly Old Town and Lake Forest, I think are the biggest issues facing our city. As the chair of the Old Town Advisory Committee, I am deeply invested in the success of Old Town. And I don't live in Old Town, I live in a neighborhood that's adjacent to it. But as Old Town goes, so do the surrounding neighborhoods. Those toolbox programs that the city offers, I think there's opportunity to expand how those are used. And also, the Grow Gaithersburg website is a wonderful tool to highlight the business development opportunities here in the city. Our legacy neighborhoods, 355 corridor, Lake Forest, we all have an opportunity here to transform this side. But you can't look at economic development in isolation. You have to look at it holistically. And transportation is a big part of that. I think if we were to expand the mark traffic in both directions throughout the day, I think that would go a long way to bringing people into Old Town and expanding those opportunities.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hernandez.
Excellent. I'll have to agree with Judd and Stephen and Jim. One of the great things that we have here is a lot of competence and good candidates. I would only add to what's been said that I think if I look at myself as a voter and what I want to see in a city council member is somebody who digs deep into the details, analyzes, and tries to get the best deal, the best opportunity, and the best outcome for the residents of all Gaithersburg, not just east side or west side. So, I think a lot of good things have been said. I adopt them. I'm always fond of quoting Mike Tyson's quote of, we all have plans, and so you step into a ring and get punched in the mouth, then you have to adjust, to that. And I think you'll find with me somebody who's had those opportunities or those challenges in his life, has adjusted and sort of improved along the way as his learning. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Hernandez. Sorry, Ms. Henderson. Sorry, I merged 2 names together. My apologies. Those board members know I can do this frequently, and so my kids can tell you the same thing. Sorry, Ms. Henderson, it's your floor for 1 minute.
It gave me time to unmute. I agree with my friends here, and to address the east side is to expand the thriving biotech, bioscience businesses that are doing well on the west side. So let's expand that growth to the east side, and I think that's how we can begin and continue after we begin to enhance the east side of Gaithersburg to be as thriving, as resourceful, and the economic growth on the east side.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cook.
So I'll talk about something different. So I think the city does a good job with the environment, but I think we could do a little bit better. One example would be the stormwater restoration projects. I don't think the city took into account the environment as much as they should have in regards to, Bloom Park, for example. There was a lot of trees that got cut down. So I feel like they could do a little bit better with the environment in that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Mr. Belgard. Oh, Dave, you're muted.
Thank you. While the east side, west side divide is a very important issue for our city to address, and I do absolutely agree with that, I think that you really have to focus on part of what causes that. And I think one of the most important things for us to focus on addressing is our poverty rate. And that stems from jobs. We actually have a lot of jobs in the city, but they're not jobs that all of our residents can do. I really want to focus on the small business sector, supporting that and building it up so that we encourage a wide range of diverse types of jobs that support all of our citizens and can help all of our residents hopefully get higher paying wages that they then can turn and spend on the east side, bring in better retail on the east side because our residents there are better employed because we focused on our small business sector. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. For the next question, this will begin with the council members. I am going to start to change the order a little bit. So we begin with Mr. Cook. Kind of building off that last question, we now have a lot of business districts or downtowns in Gaithersburg. You've got Old Town, you've got Kentlands Lakelands downtown, Crown Farm, the new Watkins Mill, eventually the revitalization of Lake Forest. Many municipalities, other than large cities, don't have to juggle so many that may compete with each other, especially for businesses. How can you, as a council member, support our different municipalities on both sides of 270, and how can each one be developed uniquely with its own niche so that they don't compete with each other?
So kind of going back to the Old Town thing, I think Old Town and Lake Forest kind of need a little bit more right now than Kentlands and Crown. So I think right now we should focus on the development of Old Town and Lake Forest Mall, because we should have like restaurant weeks like other cities have to get residents interested in going to restaurants in Old Town, have more events there, have things to really get people going to Old Town. And at this moment, I don't think that the other parts of the city need as much help right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. We'll move to Mr. Hernandez on the same question.
Sure. So I actually worked on some of that with the toolbox and the city to make sure that our Main Street was able to get some support for its shops and realization. I think every community, whether it's Crown or Old Town or our downtown here, has a different character, different amenities that attract people. You have a Grayfield and Lake Forest, where the city's just approved a very thorough and detailed master plan, which will take a significant period of time to come to fruition. I agree with Phil in terms of our focus should be in the near term to get those areas that have not received as much investment in the past. However, I think there is a diversity in amenities and interest. People who've lived in the Kentlands and have moved to Crown or vice versa have done so because of the type of housing that's available, the different amenities that are available. And I don't see them as competing, more as complementary. And we want to make sure we have a diverse set of housing so that our residents have lots of options to live and work and shop.
Thank you. The same question to Mr. McNulty.
Thank you, Chris. And I agree with Jamil, and I think the question is important. I've been saying for a long time that the future of Lake Forest, it needs to be a destination. We can't cannibalize our other business centers. There needs to be a unique offering. But one of the great things about the master plan that was passed is that it requires 35% of that space to be set aside for public use. So whether that's something like a Strathmore or a convention center or something, or aggregate those spaces together so you can get a city park and then have restaurants around it and then have shops around that. So somebody who wants to spend time in Gaithersburg can plan their evening to go to an event, and then they can have dinner there, and then they can visit the shops, and it really becomes a destination. But you're not pulling away from Old Town. You're not pulling away from Crown. You're not pulling away from the Kentlands. I think that's the approach that we need to take with Lake Forest and encourage the owners to put forward a plan that offers something unique. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Belgard, the same question.
Thank you. I mean, as others have mentioned, that's a really good and important question. I agree with Jamil in a lot that each of these areas has a different character and feel to them. One of the important things that we need to continue to do is to encourage those different areas of character and different areas of feel. And we do that by the types of businesses that we work to bring into each area. Jim McNulty mentioned Lake Forest, and that's a really important area for us to build on. It has an opportunity to revitalize the entire east side, and we can easily do it without cannibalizing other businesses on the east side by building that into kind of a downtown Gaithersburg style, almost a unique thing within Gaithersburg. And once again, an area with its own character and feel, which is very important across our city to encourage for each of our different districts. Thank you.
Finally, Ms. Henderson, the same question. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you, Chris. We've learned from the Kentlands concept back in the 80s of how to build a city within a suburban environment. And it's not, I don't want to use the word competition. I think it's a partnership. What we've learned on the west side, we should take to the east side. I live on the west side of the city, and I often go to my favorite places on the east side. And I don't shop on the west side because I live on the west side. Sometimes I do, but wherever my favorite shop is, wherever my favorite restaurant is, my favorite business, that's where I go. So we can bring back Celebrate Gaithersburg to highlight business districts and how well they're doing business on the east side of town, because there are some shops there that are. And the Lake Forest project, that is economic growth on the east side. And when it happens, we will see that growth happen. And it's the Lake Forest project.
Okay, thank you. And also the same question to both mayor candidates. We'll start with Mr. Ashman.
So the east side, I'm not crazy about us, having all these questions about east side versus west side, because we do sort of look at this holistically. But the fact is, the east side was developed many decades, in some case, some parts a century before the west side, and so there are fundamental differences. Old Town is a place characterized by small parcels with all different owners, whereas Kentlands started as a single plot of land with a single owner. As I've said before, if you're trying to paint a masterpiece, it's easier to do it with a big canvas than it is with a bunch of little scraps. So a lot of the developments on the west side had that advantage. I think what the east side needs that's distinct from the west is market rate housing. And I'll tell you what, I'm running out of time here, but I'll explain why in future answers.
Finally, Mr. Escobar, the same question.
Thank you very much. Most of the candidates here have already echoed what I had to say about the east side, but I just wanted to add something. I grew up, graduated from elementary school, middle school, and high school on the east side of Gaithersburg, Resnick, Redland, and Magruder. And I used to go to Lake Forest Mall all the time after school during high school, and it was our favorite place after school. It's a shame that it's gone the way that it has, but what I want to focus on the east side is the infrastructure around it. Because even though we're still years away from development on Lake Forest, there's still a need for the infrastructure around it. And we don't want to be playing catch up when that starts developing. The traffic is already bad the way it is, especially at the intersection of 355 and Montgomery Village. I would like to see an interchange there. Thank you very much.
Mr. Escobar, I'll let you continue because the next question we're going to piggyback. Several of you have mentioned the Lake Forest Mall redevelopment. So beginning with you to continue, Mr. Escobar, ideally, what should we be working towards with respect to that property? And what do you see as a timeline for a completed project?
Thank you very much for that question. So Lake Forest used to employ hundreds and hundreds of low and middle class workers and high schoolers. All those jobs are now gone. We need to find something to supplement those jobs. I'm looking for that. I'm looking for diversified growth for jobs. Something that doesn't require a master's degree or a bachelor's degree. It's now decades. To answer that question about how long the redevelopment of Lake Forest will be, I believe it'll be decades. I mean, for an example, just from Crown, before Crown started to be built up, it was farmland. But before that, we had years and years of planning, surveying, environmental tests. And we're talking about an entire mall that has to be demolished with 5 different owners that can't agree on something. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Ashman, the same question. Your thoughts on the Lake Forest Mall redevelopment?
So it's first off, with regard to Crown, another thing happened with Crown in that time, which was the financial crisis, and that played a big part. There was a bankruptcy, and that added a whole lot to the timeline on Crown. But I fully support the master plan update on Lake Forest. We're talking about recommendation to rezone to mixed use. We're talking about distinctive public spaces, walkable, hopefully with a lot of public amenities, perhaps a performance space, experiential retail and restaurant and residential. And when we talk about a timeline, I think the master plan update helps because as Stephen alluded to, Lake Forest looks like one property, but it's actually 5 properties with 5 different owners who are bound by an agreement that says no one can make a change to their part of the property without the permission of the other 4. We need somebody, if there's redevelopment, we need someone to acquire all of the pieces. And that unfortunately is outside of the control of the city. We facilitate as much as we can, but all of these property owners have divergent interests. And anyway, it's a complicated thing and it's hard to say when it's going to happen, but hopefully tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Ashman. I think this question is important also for the council members. So we will begin with Mr. Belgard. Dave, you want to, yep, you're muted again, Dave.
I thought I clicked that. All right, thank you. This is obviously a very important matter, and the council has spent a long time on working on a master plan for this. As far as what we should be working towards, I have testified to the council, written numerous pages on this to the council. It's all available online. My vision of this is kind of a downtown Gaithersburg style with diverse types of housing, different types of housing, all sorts of different jobs available so that people can work where they live, hopefully. Transit available right in that area, maybe even a bus loop to make it extremely transit accessible and friendly, where people of all economic levels, all cultures, and all races are encouraged to gather in that one spot. The timeline, it's impossible to know, but I tell you, I believe it's the council's responsibility to work hard on getting all of the property owners together and accelerate that timeline as much as possible.
Thank you. Ms. Henderson.
Thank you. Lake Forest redevelopment, like Stephen Escobar, I grew up in this area. We're both descendants of Magruder High School, go Colonels. I learned to ice skate at Lake Forest Mall, and it is not that anymore. And the master plan will get us there, but there are the 5 owners, and they don't agree on redevelopment. I can't call when that will happen. I believe I agree that the council should work with those 5 owners to come to an agreement, at least an agreement, but we could be way off. As the mayor said, it could be tomorrow, it could be years, but it is currently the right plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cook.
So I think that the Lake Forest master plan is a good idea with mixed use development, having restaurants, housing, and many other things there. Kind of like the Mayor Judd says, I wish it could be tomorrow, but there's 5 different owners that can't agree. So our hands are kind of tied. I was speaking with Jamil the other day, and he had a good idea. Wasn't my idea, it was his idea. He said we could threaten them with eminent domain. That's an idea I'd be okay with, and I think that would maybe get the ball rolling a little bit more. Thank you.
We'll toss it then to Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. So what to do at Lake Forest and what's the timeline? All of us have a lot of connections and deep ties to it. My wife used to work at Claire's in the mall. If you haven't taken the time, you should read the master plan. The city, I think, took the first step, which is the important piece there. It's very thorough, well done. I read every stitch of the testimony, watched every video, and I encourage anybody watching this to go and do it, because it lays a great foundation for what could be done there. In terms of what we can do as council members in government, one is make sure we have a straightforward process for people to come in, and when they're putting their plans, that they get vetted and reviewed quickly. As to eminent domain for economic opportunity, that's a very controversial tool that has been used, sometimes successfully, sometimes not, but it's one of the things in the toolbox that a city could consider. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. McNulty.
Thank you, Chris. I too miss having a vibrant Lake Forest. While I wasn't born here, we used to take our daughter to see Santa Claus at Center Court, and we have some very, wonderful memories about Lake Forest. I mean, it doesn't do anybody any good having it sit mostly vacant. It doesn't do the owners any good. It doesn't do the city any good, and it doesn't do the citizens any good either. While it is incumbent upon the owners to do something, I think the city can play a larger role in trying to get the stakeholders into a room and figuring out what it will take to move forward. I think realizing a completed project is going to be probably decades away, but we need to look at what are the things that we can do now to facilitate development. One of which is, since we know that we want to have a public space there, perhaps the owners can identify the area that could become that public space. And maybe we can start moving forward on that part of the project. Perhaps we can start looking at the infrastructure. Stephen referenced possibly improving the intersection at 124. 355 backs up on a good day, so we might need an overpass at that place. But if we start showing that we're invested,
cut you off there.
people may move forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Transitioning a little bit, Mr. Cook, earlier you mentioned the environment. Most people probably feel the need to invest in renewable energy. What role should the city council play in expanding solar energy throughout the city, especially among business consumption?
So I think the city should do whatever they can in their power to promote solar energy. And I know that a lot of people don't like it just because it doesn't look very pretty, but I think it's a good idea. And I would definitely be in favor of having grant programs or promoting solar as much as possible for the environment.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Mr. Hernandez, the same question.
Hey, good afternoon. Sorry, good evening. I think in any sort of city-owned building, to the extent you can apply rooftop solar, those I think have been developed very well in municipalities. I think if we want to live our values of sustainability and conservation, to the extent the city plays a role in any type of permitting or review of solar installation and collection devices, it should try to streamline, prioritize, and make it simplify the application process for it. I can tell you it's not quite solar, but related to it, and trying to install an EV charger, and I'm on month 5 dealing with Pepco and working through that. That's not how we should, when I talk about simplifying processes, we should make those a lot simpler. So I'm full solar, and I think if we can find more places to put it in the city where it makes sense, like a rooftop of city-owned buildings, we should do it.
Thank you. Mr. McNulty.
Thank you, Chris. I think anything that we can do to support and promote solar energy is a win. I love the phrase "living our values." I think that's important. You see that the city was it the county just went forward with some electric police cars. And if you can combine electric police cars with solar panels, then you are really, taking those vehicles off the grid. There is the capital area solar co-op that we can support. There's lots of different things. I think making it easier with HOAs to get your solar panels approved. Jamil is correct. Anything that makes the process less painful, whether it's leasing, owning, selling back to the grid, working with the state, I think that's an important thing that the city can do.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hernandez, Mr. Henderson. Boy, I did it twice. Sorry, Lisa.
It's okay, Chris. I'm just gonna start answering to it. Yay to solar. I had a conversation last week with a county official who's getting solar panels on his house because his neighbors who've gotten it are getting checks back from Pepco. They're saving so much money. They're in the black with Pepco and getting checks back. So yes to solar. The city has an amazing environmental affairs committee, and I would ask that committee take up solar and take a look at it and see if it makes sense, where it makes sense in the city and how it makes sense.
Thank you. And I think, Mr. Belgard, you're the last council candidate to answer this question.
At this time, I actually unmuted myself. This is a question that's bigger than solar. It's really a question of environmentalism in general. We are a green city. That is one of our values. If you want to live your values, as I believe it was Mr. Hernandez that said, it's about where you spend your money, your time, and your effort. We should be looking beyond solar. We should be looking at solar also, but we should be looking beyond solar. We should be looking at buildings when they're permitted of a certain size. They have to either have solar or a green roof on it. We should be looking at any sort of environmental solution that we can implement now and today, because I think at this point, we all know climate change is real. And any solution has to start with anything we can do. Our city is a green city, and that's where our values lie, and that's what we have to support.
Thank you. Before we get to the mayor candidates on a slightly related but different topic, for those who are in the audience, I think somebody has raised their hand. If you do want to put questions in the Q&A, I know we have a good one about sustainability and waste management that we may get to later. Do please feel free to do that. I do have that open on my other screen here. So instead of folks just raising their hand, please add the questions to the Q&A and I'll be happy to consider those. So to the mayoral candidates, a slight twist on the energy. What role should the mayor play in promoting, electric car consumption and EV chargers throughout the city? We'll begin with Mr. Ashman.
Thank you. I'm glad you asked that. I'm going to touch on solar really quickly as well. We do have solar on some of our city facilities. We did take a good look at the practicality of having a much more intense solar grid in the city, but it was determined that we don't have the space. There's not a good place to do it. And so our best option would be to be part of a solar co-op. But getting to mayor's leadership, when the US dropped out of the Paris Climate Accord, I signed on to the mayor's Paris Climate Accord, committing our city to the values therein. Our city has been an environmental leader for a long time. Some of what Dave was talking about in terms of green building codes, we did more than 10 years ago. We were probably the first city to have both a residential and a commercial green building code. I was proud to cast a vote to get us there. We're in the midst of converting our vehicle fleet from standard traditional gas to hybrid and electric, converting our street lights from high pressure sodium to LED, and so on and so forth. I'm running out of time, but I could go on, trust me.
Thank you. Mr. Escobar, the same thing about the mayor's role in promoting EV chargers and electric cars throughout the city.
Thank you very much for the question. I forgot to give a slight disclosure at the very beginning. I'm not a politician, so I may not answer these questions as a politician would, but I do have to give credit where credit's due, and the city so far has done an amazing job when it comes to the environment. Although for the last 3 days, I have been door knocking in the Kentlands, and the main concern from the residents there was the environment. Environment was number one. The residents in the Kentlands that I spoke to in the last 3 days, they said they want to see more electric vehicles, more EV charging stations, more solar panels, more sustainability. And I look forward to building on all the accomplishments that we've already had here in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go back, we'll stay with the mayoral candidates. Mr. Ashman, Gaithersburg enjoys a position as an attractive place for pharmaceutical investment. What are your continued thoughts on this? And what is your plan to maintain that position and even enhance it as other municipalities compete for such opportunities?
Thanks for the question. So, yeah, we have certain advantages. I mean, we're close to several science-oriented federal facilities that make a big difference here. We happen to be the North American home base for AstraZeneca, and I think everyone here was aware that we recently signed a deal with Novavax so they could build a big giant campus here and expand in Gaithersburg. That's just really the tip of the iceberg when it comes to life science companies, and we recognize that this area has certain advantages, and we try to leverage that to attract and retain those types of businesses to the city. We are the heart of the I-270 life sciences corridor, which is one of the top in the whole country. It's a big deal. I think I would also say, as some of our council candidates have pointed out, it's not the only industry that we provide incentives to and try to attract, but it is important. We're very lucky to have it here. So we're going to continue to make efforts to keep it thriving.
Thank you.
Keep it thriving.
Mr. Escobar.
Mr. Campbell, I do have to apologize. Could you just repeat the question one more time?
Absolutely. Gaithersburg enjoys a position as an attractive place for pharmaceutical investment. What are your thoughts on this, and what is your plan to maintain that position and even enhance it as other municipalities compete for such opportunities?
Thank you very much for that question. The city's already doing an outstanding job with the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, Novavax headquarters here in the city of Gaithersburg, out of all the cities in the world, is a huge deal. We're already doing very well. I look forward to working with these pharmaceutical companies. I don't have much experience working with pharmaceutical companies. I have to be honest. I will always be honest, but I look forward to learning more about these companies, meeting the leaders, and working on how the city and these pharmaceutical companies can keep growing together to make this the pharmaceutical capital of the world. Thank you.
Moving on to the council candidates, the same question regarding pharmaceutical investment. Lisa Henderson, let's begin with you.
Thank you, Chris. With the biotech, biosciences firms that are coming to Gaithersburg, woohoo, first of all, that awesome for economic growth. My concern is that who will fill those jobs in those businesses? Will they bring in resources from other towns, from other states? Will they bring in resources from surrounding jurisdictions? How do we make residents of Gaithersburg employable and employed to those businesses that call Gaithersburg home? And I would look at public and private partnerships to develop job training for Gaithersburg City residents to become a valuable resource to those businesses and to those firms. I think it's important that if they're having business here, that Gaithersburg residents also work there.
Thank you. Mr. McNulty.
Thank you, Chris. I think it's important that we show our dedication to building the infrastructure that's going to support such a robust community. Working with our partners in Rockville and Annapolis to make sure that we have what we need to keep them here and to put those resources around them. Things like mark traffic in both directions. If you live down county, you cannot come up to Gaithersburg by the mark in the mornings. You have to either take a bus or you have to drive. People during the pandemic have shown that they're willing to quit jobs if they have to commute really far. They got used to working from home. It'll be very interesting to see how the job market changes. So we need to make sure that there's adequate housing here in Gaithersburg so people can live and work here. But then we also have to look further, look at the schools and make sure we have adequate schools for the families that are going to be supporting those jobs. So we need to take a holistic approach.
Thank you. Mr. Cook.
So I think that the biotech companies in Gaithersburg is great for them and great for the city. I actually work for a pharmaceutical company in DC, not in Gaithersburg though. It's good for the city because of the tax revenue. It's a great location for the biotech companies. And I think we should do more what Lisa Henderson was saying. I think we should do more to have internships for kids at Gaithersburg High School to get them in the door at these companies, to have more people in Gaithersburg working there as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Belgard.
Thank you. The biotechs for our city are a wonderful resource, and it's great that we are a biotech hub. We put a lot of energy into that, and we have now that we are a biotech hub, we have so many residents here that work in the biotech field, which is great. But it's more than just that. We have 39,000 jobs in the city. 20% of those almost are science and tech jobs. It's important for our city to ensure that we have a diversified job base. We need to continue to grow the biotech hub because that's great for our city. But at the same time, we need to put the same amount of energy and focus into growing all of the other different types of jobs. Who knows what the next 10 or 20 years holds for Gaithersburg and the biotech industry. Hopefully it's all great stuff. But in order to ensure for Gaithersburg productive future, we need to make sure that while we can lean heavily on one industry, we can't be only reliant upon that one industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
Sorry, I was muted. This is an area that's very near and dear to my heart. I've spent my entire career working in life sciences and pharmaceuticals. It's more than just a job, being part of teams who develop medicines for patients with rare diseases and seeing that come to fruition is life-changing. I'm a strong supporter of the life sciences sector, co-founded a company, employ people in the city and in the county to do that. I think you need three main items, which are laboratory space, manufacturing space, and some office space. Some of you may not know, but Montgomery College has a 2-year technical program to help folks get jobs in laboratory and manufacturing in biotech and pharma. They have a near 100% placement rate. So the more I think of these high quality, well-paying, but still attainable jobs, you don't need to have PhDs and masters to get good paying jobs in pharmaceuticals. We should look for all the ways we can create the appropriate infrastructure incentives to make sure we attract and keep these jobs, and also diversify across there. But it's my favorite industry.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Besides, obviously, we've talked about the Lake Forest Master Plan. There's a master plan here in the Kentlands that is many years old. At one point, there was discussions about building an apartment complex at the intersection of Quince Orchard Road and Great Seneca Highway. And we have a question here in the Q&A that I want to go to, and we'll begin with Mr. Hernandez. Do you as a candidate support allowing more housing to be built on the vacant lot next to the colonnade at the intersection of Quince Orchard Road and Great Seneca Highway?
So only if our infrastructure is prepared to meet the additional density that it will generate. We have overcrowding in a lot of our schools, and sometimes our school buildings lag and drag the development of new construction and housing. So that would be my perspective. Density is good. It supports the businesses in our downtown sector here, in our main street, to keep them afloat and make sure they thrive. And this is an exciting and interesting place for people to come. But the infrastructure and the traffic impacts need to be well considered before we say yes to a development like that.
Thank you. Mr. McNulty.
Thank you, Chris. I actually attended a number of the city council sessions that were talking about that apartment complex. And, there were a number of concerns, one of which being the private road that actually provides access to that space. The other interesting piece of that is the CCT was supposed to have its parking lot for the Kentlands station there on that property. So if that space is developed, it definitely puts a kink into the CCT plans. So I agree with Jamil. I think if it's going to be done, it has to be done properly. I think there has to be the proper infrastructure, and I think we need to look kind of holistically. It is private property, and we do have to support property owners' rights, but it's when you look at it and how does it interface with the rest of the community. That's where the city's interest in. So I think we really need to look hard at what the priority for the city needs to be on that space.
Ms. Henderson.
Thank you, Chris. I also support the research of the property to see what's feasible and what the risks are. The residents have voiced their concerns, and it requires research to understand if it is a valuable use of that space, if it can meet the issues, or is it a problem to do it. But it's a question that I wouldn't answer currently because I don't know what all the issues are. I'm not sure that any of us know until we dig in to find out. And it's worthy of us digging in.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
So one concern I've heard from a lot of people on the east side of the city in Old Town area is that they're the only part of the city that has affordable housing. So this would be a way to have affordable housing, in the Kentlands on the west side. And if the owner wants to go through with it and it meets all the criteria, I would be in favor of it.
Finally, Mr. Belgard.
Thank you. This has been on the books and approved for a long time, but it just kind of stopped and nothing's happened with it. What I can tell you is that our city is growing. We grew by 10,000 residents in the last decade. We're going to grow by 15,000 in the next decade. We have to plan ahead for that growth, have to make sure that there are places for people to live, places all different types, duplexes, quadplexes, townhouses, everything. This may be a site where that is a useful thing to do. If we're going to do that, though, once again, I said we have to plan ahead. You have to look at traffic, and you have to look at schools. You have to look at all the other public facilities and how things are going to impact. We can't stop the growth, and we don't want to stop the growth, but we can manage it so that we have a great outcome for our city. And that's what I want to make sure that we do with this site. Thank you.
Several of the council members have mentioned the impact on schools, obviously with the many of our master plans and increased density. There is great concern about our schools, which are already, most of the Gaithersburg schools are already at max capacity. So going to the mayoral candidates. So Mr. Escobar, what do you see your role at? Obviously MCPS and the council controls the county council, not the city council, controls the purse strings for MCPS, and MCPS makes decisions about building new schools or remodeling old schools. But what do you see your role potentially as mayor in advocating for either new schools within the city of Gaithersburg or improving the current schools that we have? We'll begin with Mr. Escobar, then go to Mr. Ashman.
Thank you very much for that question. One thing that I forgot to mention, because we do only get 1 minute, an elementary school in or near Lake Forest is desperately going to be needed for the future. I would like to start working with the county to start drawing up plans or how we can incorporate an elementary school in the Lake Forest area. And also one thing that for the programs here in the Montgomery County Public Schools in the city of Gaithersburg is I want to see more programs that help special education. I had a mother email me about a week and a half ago saying that her son is being bullied in school at Thurgood Marshall Elementary School, and there's not much help from the staff there. And she was asking me for assistance, and I told her I will do everything in my power to help every individual that I can. My powers are limited here at the city level, but I will work with anybody to help improve the quality of life of everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Ashman.
Thanks, Chris. I originally got into local public affairs because of overcrowded schools. My kids were going to overcrowded schools, and I had already taken a position in leadership in PTA. I was Brown Station Elementary PTA president, then became the cluster coordinator for the Quince Orchard cluster. I got a lot of years advocating to the Board of Education, to MCPS, working with them on various issues, including Rachel Carson, many years on Rachel Carson. What's interesting about Rachel Carson is that the overcrowding there is not the result of new development. It's the result of almost its own success. It's people move out of the neighborhood, and and families move in because Rachel Carson is such a desirable school to go to. So it's been a difficult problem to fix, but it is on track for being for getting some relief for its overcrowding. And we're working on relief on the east side of Gaithersburg, where we've gotten MCPS to build a new school over at Kelly Park, which will relieve schools like Summit Hall and Gaithersburg Elementary and Rosemont and others. So this is an area I have a lot of experience in and look forward to continuing.
Thank you, Mr. Ashman. We'll stay with you. Obviously, the impact of the current pandemic has been hard on many residents in the city. What initiatives do you see that you would support to create jobs for those specifically who have suffered from the pandemic of COVID-19?
Well, we serve the people in need in many ways. Some in connecting them with job training, connecting them with job opportunities through nonprofits that we work with. What the city itself, we only do one social service in-house, and that's our Wells Robertson House, which is to serve people recovering from addiction and homelessness. For all of the other needs, whether it's job opportunities, whether it's feeding the hungry, whether it's getting medical care to people who need it, and what have you, we work with nonprofits. And so our community services division heads that up. And when people in need get in touch with us and get in touch with me, I connect them with community services, and they are a terrific resource for getting them the help that they need and connecting them with opportunities that will make life more sustainable for them. And I think we do a great job at it.
Thank you. Mr. Escobar, the same question. So what job initiatives would you implement to help those specifically that were affected from losing their jobs due to COVID-19?
Thank you very much for that question. Yes, the pandemic has hit certain parts of the city very hard. Old Town, I believe, has been hit the hardest. I want to create, if possible, and I believe that it is, more training programs here at the city level, and as well as making the community services more known to the city residents. I think maybe we need to. A lot of people don't know all the benefits that the city already has. So I want to help broadcast that information out as much as possible. Working with nonprofits is also very important, and yes, that's all I really have to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Transitioning to the council candidates, a slightly different twist on a question related to COVID and the pandemic. Beginning with Mr. Belgard, what COVID-related services would you continue or discontinue as we hopefully enter a season of recovery?
Obviously, that's a very timely question. I'll tell you, I currently serve on the Community Advisory Committee. And one of the many things that committee does is provide funding to not-for-profits for a wide range of activities, amongst which are job training programs, helping people find jobs, providing vaccinations with trucks that go into neighborhoods to help people get vaccinations, all sorts of services. Our city spends $1 million a year on this right now. Most cities don't do that. Most cities just rely upon the county to cover whatever type of help that they can give. Our city already goes the extra mile and spends $1 million a year. I would continue all of those. I'm on the committee and I would love to expand those if we can at all afford it. Once again, where we put our money is where our values are. And I believe that our city clearly has values to support and protect our residents. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McNulty.
Thank you, Chris. I think, thinking of our small businesses, our restaurants, I think, were saved by allowing expanded sidewalk eating and takeaway liquor. I think that alone may have saved, I'm going to guess at a number, but maybe half of our restaurants. And we certainly were doing our part with takeout, particularly with the restaurants in Old Town, Don Jorge's and La Casita, to make sure that that they were able to sustain that. You think about the jobs that are sustained by these employers and these entrepreneurs. The city, I believe, received $11 million as part of the American Recovery Fund. Judd would have to check my math on that one. And we've already received half of it. And I think that there's opportunities to look at how do we spend that money. I know some of it is meant to fill the reduction in income that the city got through taxes because of the downturn. But the city is really well run. I don't know how many know this, but the city has zero debt and we pay as we go. And I think that speaks to the how well it's run. So I think we can look at opportunities to spend that money to continue to support those who have not quite recovered from the pandemic.
Thank you. Ms. Henderson.
Thank you, Chris. This question is near and dear to me. I led the efforts for Montgomery County and the IT efforts in building and implementing the COVID-19 testing solution and the vaccine registration solution. In doing so, the data that was available helped us target, including the city of Gaithersburg, which was at one point a COVID hotspot, and we were able to target and do targeted intervention to deal with that issue. I would continue. Human capital is important here, and I would continue with the testing efforts, with the vaccination efforts to get our human capital back in the workplace, back in the workforce, and then education. Knowledge is power here to understand what tools, what amenities the city has to offer, what opportunities are currently available for workforce, for hire, and to make sure that those humans that we are keeping healthy through COVID testing and vaccination, that they can get back to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cook.
So I would be in favor of continuing all the city programs that are started since the pandemic. This is a once in a lifetime pandemic, so I believe we should have once in a lifetime ideas. And I would propose a pilot program to offer UBI to the poorest citizens of the city to help them with relief to get through the pandemic. An extra $200, $300 for our city's poorest residents could go a long way. And like somebody said, we don't have any debt, we can afford it, so why not do that? Thank you.
Finally, Mr. Hernandez.
Well, the pandemic really tests and tried our residents, our businesses, and our social fabric. And one of the things we learned through it is, we're all social creatures. I was door knocking the other day, and a elderly person was telling me about, when I door knock, I usually ask, what are your issues, ideas, or concerns for the city? And her concerns were that, the senior centers and the way she used to socialize were all closed for the majority of the pandemic, and there wasn't a way to do that. The city and county experimented with closure of streets, more outdoor opportunities. Jim mentioned the takeaway liquor, also delivery of liquor. We have some dog parks now that have coffee and liquor and food, and I think we should look for different ways to continue that post-pandemic. There were good businesses, resilient to the pandemic, and still allowed the socialization that's so critical for our residents.
Thank you. Staying with the council candidates, so we'll stay with you, Mr. Hernandez. Now that the city has opted into the Montgomery County CCOC, what, if any, role do you think the city council should have in this program and helping the communities through the city?
Well, as you know, I was not a fan of the city opting into the CCOC. I think the city could have created a version of that that was better tailored and more attuned to the needs of the city. I'm a big believer in home rule. That's one of the reasons I want to run for city council, because we have a local government that's more responsive to our needs than the county or state government. So the extent that we could have done that, I would have preferred it. Now that we're in it, I think the city needs to make sure that the CCOC operates efficiently, to make sure that residents' rights are being protected. And I was just reading about a consent agreement or a settlement of an HOA where they violated all kinds of rules, and our state's attorney general Brian Frosch came in and they had to do that. So there are abuses in HOA. I like to think KCA is very well run, and but not every HOA is, and the CCOC provides the infrastructure to help adjudicate that. I think the city should continue to advocate that it's run efficiently. It isn't bloated. Decisions don't take months and months and months to procure, and it runs as efficiently as it can.
Thank you. Mr. Belgard. Dave, you're muted. Mr. Belgard. We look like we're having technical.
So sorry about that. My computer was having a problem.
No, you're no problem. So again, now that the city's opted into the Montgomery County CCOC, what, if any, role do you think the city council should have in helping the city residents in regards to this program?
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to start off with, I testified to the council a number of times. I'm on the record being a supporter of the CCOC, both in general and also using the services that are run by the county. I believe that it is important that everyone is able to have an equal voice when it comes to a negotiating table, and the CCOC helps provide that. I know there was some discussion as to having one in our city. We are a very fiscally responsible city, and that was looked at and determined that it was going to be more expensive than joining the county. And I believe, and a number of others believe, that it would provide such limited additional services that there was really no good reason to do that. I think that the council's role moving forward is to make sure that the program is being used effectively and that it is helping our citizens as we believe that it will. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cook.
So I also wasn't a fan of the CCOC. I just didn't agree with forcing people to opt into it. But now that we are in it, I would say that I'd want the city to send letters to all the residents who are in it, just letting them know what their options are now if anything comes up, because things do come up between neighbors and with HOAs, and just letting all the residents know what their options are in case they need to. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Henderson.
Thank you. I think now that we're in it, I think the city's role is oversight to make sure that things are done equitably, particularly for the Gaithersburg city residents. It has to be oversight. We're in it now, so we just have to make sure that things are done appropriately, and as Phil Cook said, also to make sure that residents are aware. This stuff gets complicated. So to make sure that we have informed our residents of exactly what's going on, what their options are, and that's the oversight that the city can play now that we're in it.
And finally, Mr. McNulty.
Thank you, Chris. I agree with Lisa. I think the role of the city at this point is going to be oversight. I mean, being on an HOA is hard. I mean, you get a book like this thick that has all of these rules, and it's It's a lot. And I think one of the good things about the CCOC is the training that it can offer for boards, so they understand how to do their job. We actually took the step one of firing our management company when I was the president of the Saybrook HOA and attempting to rewrite our rules because it was so challenging. So now that the CCOC is in place, it needs to be a neutral resource for people who just don't seem to be able to get what they need out of there. Not every HOA is well run as Saybrook or as the Kentlands. So I think it's going to be an important resource for particularly those smaller ones. And at the end of the day, it's about making sure that our community is a little more neighborly, and hopefully people can get resolution and be able to move on with their lives and not be stuck in HOA jail.
Thank you. Mr. Ashman, how would you describe your leadership style with city staff? Why this approach? And what do you hope to accomplish through your interactions with city staff?
I'm sorry, Chris, can you clarify when you say, what's my style working with city staff? What approach are you referring to? Which approach?
Just in your interactions with the city staff that you work with, can you describe, your interactions and specifically your leadership style there?
Oh, sure. Well, I have a great relationship with staff, all kinds of different staff, from the city manager to the deputy, the assistant, department heads, and lower level staff. I think the world of them. I think we are incredibly fortunate to have a spectacular team who make the council members and me look good a lot of the time. I mean, it's all of the time, every day. I'm grateful for it. My leadership style is generally to be very, very praising publicly, and if there's ever an issue, to discuss it face to face. But there rarely is. Honestly, I trust and respect the professionalism of our staff. They do great work, and I learn from them, and we work together very well every day.
Mr. Escobar, how would you describe your leadership style, and what would you hope to get out of your interactions with city staff?
Thank you very much for that question. I am a leader who leads by example. I have never instructed one of my soldiers to do a task or perform a task that I have not done or would not do myself. I give a lot of praise. I give a lot of credit when credit's due. I give credit to even though it is not in my favor to be giving credit to the incumbent, mayor and city staff, but they've been doing a great job, and I continue to give praise. One perfect example was just last week. There was a city light that was out in our neighborhood, and I submitted a request on Public Works online. They responded very quickly, very responsive. I gave them praise, and that is who I am. I give praise, I give credit when credit's due. I lead by example. And I'll never instruct someone to do something that I wouldn't do myself. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will go to all 7 candidates. We'll begin with Mr. Escobar. Cities are either growing or shrinking these days. Growing cities such as Gaithersburg struggle with providing elegant and more affordable housing. As similar cities across the county begin to allow neighborhoods to gently densify and add uses, how do you feel about the following? 1, permitting duplexes and triplexes in single-family neighborhoods, and 2, permitting garage conversions to workspace, and 3, reduce or remove minimum parking requirements in some places to encourage redevelopment. So let me read that one more time because there was multiple parts to it. Cities are either shrinking or growing or shrinking these days. Growing cities such as Gaithersburg struggle with providing elegant and more affordable housing, as similar cities across the country, I said county, but I should say country, begin to allow neighborhoods to gently densify and add uses. How do you feel about 1, permitting duplexes and triplexes in single family neighborhoods, 2, permitting garage conversions to workplace to workspace, and 3, reduce or remove minimum parking requirements in some places to encourage redevelopment? Mr. Escobar, I'll begin with you.
Thank you very much for that question. It was quite a complex question. If I understood it correctly, I am in favor for triplexes and duplex. We need to diversify our housing. We definitely need more affordable housing here in the city. As a realtor here in the city, I know how hard it is for lower middle income clients of mine to find housing here in the city. We definitely need more housing. If I heard your question correctly, we wanted to make housing out of garages.
No, well, permitting garage conversions to workspace. So the ability to convert a garage into a workspace environment.
Yes, I honestly, I have, at this point in time, I have no objection to that. If that is one individual's private property, then I believe he should have the right to do so. As far as for parking, we definitely need more city parking, especially a little bit on the. I'll finish my time here. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ashman.
Sure. So we do have duplexes in the city already, and we actually allow for it specifically in the Lake Forest Master Plan. So that is sort of part of the repertoire here in our planning department in the city. I think some of these answers depend from neighborhood to neighborhood. I certainly support garage conversions, but I would want it to. We'd have to do it in the right way. We'd have to mitigate impacts on residential neighborhoods so that they don't all of a sudden wake up one day and find themselves in what looks like a commercial zone. So we'd have to find some balances to strike there. As far as parking requirements go, we have minimized parking requirements in some places in Old Town. We have to be careful about it, because there is not necessarily the transit option for people in the city of Gaithersburg. So we have to be cognizant of automobiles at this time. But thanks for the question.
Thank you. Mr. Cook.
So for permit duplexes in single family neighborhoods, that seems like a no-brainer to me. Definitely be in favor of that. Converting garages to workspace, I would be okay with that as well. Converting parking requirements, kind of what Mayor Judd said, depends on the neighborhood. In Old Town, I think it would be a good idea, but in other neighborhoods where they don't have as much parking, I wouldn't agree with it. For example, I met somebody in Deer Park who said that they can never find parking in front of their house. And when they have guests over, they have to park like 3 blocks away. So it doesn't work for every neighborhood, but for some, I would be in favor of it. Thank you.
Mr. McNulty.
Thank you, Chris. I agree with the mayor that it really does depend on the neighborhood. I do absolutely support the addition of MXD at Lake Forest, even looking at the plans for the Kentlands infill. I think there's opportunities for MXD there as well. But if you look at a place like Old Town, there was an owner of a property who has been proposing putting in a development, and the original sketch that was shared with the community at a private event, it hasn't even been submitted to the city. There was not enough parking to support that. And then if you don't provide enough parking, as much as the transit goals are laudable, you end up pushing the people who are going to come with cars into the neighborhoods, and you're going to have a dramatic impact on those communities. So what we need to do is make sure that any development is taken into consideration. You look at the entire area and look at what that impact is going to be on the surrounding community.
Thank you. Ms. Henderson.
Thank you, Chris. I don't think we can paint a broad brush here. So density is key, but every community is unique, and it will require individual thoughts. And I would listen to the residents of that community and hear what they have to say, what the risks and concerns are. It does require, it's part of zoning. I want to talk about zoning, but I know you're going to throw your hands up. but if the zoning as it is today matches, and that's a conversation that we should also have, is zoning. As we transition, or we have transitioned into an urban community, does the zoning currently match? So this currently, as it sits today, we need to look at every neighborhood uniquely. Every resident should have a voice and what the issues are and what the concerns are. And I would listen to all those issues and concerns before making a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez.
All right, so this discussion talks about density, diversification, focus, case-by-case basis, right? I think the mayor, Phil, Jim, Lisa hit on a lot of the areas that I would agree with in terms of parking requirements, also with scale, right? So if you are in a single family zone area and somebody wants to build a duplex or triplex, we want to make sure if that's going to be something that the neighborhood and the community does, that is done to scale and not disproportionate to what's there already. This is a classic established interest versus emerging interests, and balancing those competing interests is one of the key things that a city council member needs to do and thoroughly vet. And like I said, it's on a case-by-case basis. Kentlands has already very diverse and mixed zoning. Other parts of the city don't. Wherever there are opportunities to evaluate that, we should, but take the unique properties of those communities and those neighborhoods into account when we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Belgard.
Thank you. I got to tell you, as I have walked around our city, meeting residents, knocking on doors and canvassing, I have been surprised at the number of duplexes that I have seen. I didn't know that they were here. They're everywhere, and they blend right in. Our city is growing. I already mentioned that. We're going to grow by 15,000 more people in the next decade. We're growing faster than all the surrounding areas. We do need to look closely at how we can introduce new housing options that do create density and do give places for all of our new residents to live. As the mayor said, it is on a case-by-case basis, neighborhood by neighborhood basis. Who knows what our city is going to look like in 50 years? But over the next decade, there will be a transition, at least in some areas, from single-family housing to duplexes and triplexes and other types of housing solutions, because we do need a broad base, a different type of housing options to support all of our different types of residents in their economic situations. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get to closing statements, I did want to ask one other question. Does everybody have just a few more minutes? Would everybody be okay if we go just slightly past 9 o'clock? Okay. So for the two mayoral candidates, beginning with Mr. Ashman, to make efforts towards sustainability and more effective waste management, how would you support efforts to encourage composting food waste, both for businesses and residents?
Oh, thanks for that question. We actually implemented a composting program a couple of maybe 2-3 years ago. Right now, it's not as full service as we'd like it to be, but I feel like we're evolving towards that. Right now, we have a compost drop off over at our Public Works facility on Rabbit Road, and so anybody's welcome to use it. But I would hope that we would find ways to expand it to different spots in the city, and perhaps find vendors that are able to pick up at some point. We shall see. But it's just one piece of a large environmental puzzle that we're trying to do our best here in the city of Gaithersburg. And I'm proud of the work. We've been leading edge, and I intend to keep us there. So thank you.
Mr. Escobar, same question about composting food waste.
Thank you very much for that question. Yes, I'm very familiar as well with the compost center that's right off Rabbit Road. It is a start. The city did start implementing that about 2 years ago from the research that I conducted. I look forward to expanding that to different areas of the city as well. We need to build on the progress that we're doing with that, and yeah, I look forward to doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the council candidates, the FY, this is a question posted in the Q&A. The FY22 city budget predicts that the city reserve funds will diminish for the next 4 years and be reduced to zero by FY26. Mr. Ashman can confirm if hopefully this question is accurate. Do you as city council candidates have ideas to bolster our reserves and keep the city's debt free into the future? Beginning with Mr. McNulty.
Thank you, Chris. I think there's two parts to that. One is economic development and continuing to grow the job base here to help increase the tax revenue we get from that. And two, it's the continued increase in our property values. The city has one of the, I think, the lowest property tax rate of any municipality in the state of Maryland at 26.2 cents. And I think, and that rate has stayed level. But as the values go up, your taxes are going up because your house is worth more. So I think those two things kind of go hand in hand. As the city grows, I think that's an opportunity to continue to increase the coffers. As I said earlier, the city is very well run. A lot of the rainy day fund was kind of hit because of COVID. And it is my hope that as we emerge from COVID and we start a recovery, that those numbers will turn around.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
This is an area I've spent a lot of time thinking how to, get revenue without increasing taxes. And one area I've thought through is in life sciences and other areas. I've seen companies be very successful that have created a core competency in grant writing, that have actual people who focus their day in, day out to make sure they're aware of every state, county, federal, corporate, nonprofit grant that's available, and they're applying to them in earnest. So I think that's an area where we can certainly spend some focus and look for dollars that are available that we may not be looking at for now. Just a small example, a few years ago in the KCA, we were advocating for the construction of a dog park by the Lakelands Park. And one of the areas that we looked for was for funding. We found funding from private donors for that through Purina and other. So money is out there if you look for it. So that's one way you can look for, in addition to being efficient with your tax dollars. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Ms. Henderson.
Thank you, Chris. So we are a government, the city is a government. It does not sell a product for revenue. So economic growth or increased taxes. I'm a resident of the city and I choose economic growth to bring down the debt. As we, in the public-private partnership that I spoke of earlier is key here, and Yamil mentioned it as well. As we continue to collaborate with private businesses to bone up some of the dollars that are needed so that we're not footing the whole bill, that's a great way to continue to pay down or not get into debt by having those partnerships and moving forward with private and public. And it's a win for the private business and a win for the.
Thank you. Mr. Belgard.
Thank you. I'm going to start off with saying our city is a wonder with how it's run financially. We are a zero debt city and pay as you go. That is almost unheard of across the nation. And we're going to continue that. Our city does a great job at finding money at the federal, state, and county level. Anywhere that we can get money, our staff is great at going after that and bringing it into the city. People talk about the economic situation. We have a 9.4% poverty rate. If we want to raise our city revenues, one of the best things we can do is to raise up our residents. I've talked about bringing in new jobs, diverse jobs that pay our residents better wages. We raise up our residents, we raise up their wages, we raise up their employment, and that raises up our city. Thank you.
And Mr. Cook.
So the city is very well run. We are debt free. We've taken a little bit of a hit because of coronavirus, but it's not something I'm very concerned about. There's also many grant programs that are available. So this isn't, something that I'm very concerned about. Thank you.
Okay, it is 9:04, so why don't we transition to our closing statements. I had sent the candidates the order in an an email prior. So we will begin with Mr. McNulty.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you to our hosts here in the Kentlands. Thank you again to my fellow candidates for the lively discussion. But most of all, thank you to all of you for watching this virtual forum from home. I think 2020 reminded us just how important voting is, all the way down to here at the municipal level. Your vote is precious, and we need educated voters like you to make educated decisions on who you want serving in elected office. Experience matters, leadership matters, and representation matters. I hope what you heard tonight was enough for me to earn one of your 2 votes for City Council. But the conversation doesn't have to end here tonight. Please follow me on social media, facebook.com/elect Jim McNulty, and my Twitter and Instagram handles are @Jim McNulty. And of course, you can learn more about my background and my campaign by visiting my website, jimmcnulty.org. But most importantly, please vote and tell 5 of your friends to vote and get them to do the same. Our democracy needs you, and our city needs you. Every single vote counts, and I'm asking for your vote. And finally, I would be remiss if I didn't close by wishing my oldest, Colleen, a very happy birthday. She turns 17 tomorrow. So happy birthday, CJ. I love you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Hernandez was next.
Thank you. Well, thank you all the participants. We had at some point 60 or 70 folks online. That's amazing and great to see. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us. I thank you for the KCA for sponsoring, Chris and the board of trustees for getting this together. I want to also thank the candidates. I appreciate one of the great things about Gaithersburg is the professionalism, decorum, and dare I say comedy that you saw. You know, I think everybody here acquitted themselves very well and shared with you their perspectives and their views for Gaithersburg. I hope I did as well, and I look forward to continue to work and earn your vote. Please vote by mail, drop box, early, or at Borough Park. Your vote matters. Like I said, there's a lot of different candidates with different perspectives, and I hope to earn your vote. And thank you again.
Thank you. Ms. Henderson.
Thank you again to the KCA and to you, Chris, for hosting this event. I'm a lifelong resident of Montgomery County, and I've lived in the city of Gaithersburg for the past 25 years. I've witnessed the city transition from a rural to a suburban and now to an innovative urban city. As Gaithersburg moves towards a national biotech and bioscience hub, it is important to me that these businesses utilize the talent of Gaithersburg residents to develop their workforce. This provides an opportunity for the City Council to develop and support public-private partnerships, the collaboration between the city and private sector to train Gaithersburg residents to become a valuable talent resource for these firms. Which I celebrate the firms for choosing Gaithersburg as their business home. We know that attainable housing is an essential need in Gaithersburg, and good jobs is a path that leads to home ownership, a home to grow up in, to raise your children in, and to retire, a forever home. Please vote for Lisa Henderson for Gaithersburg City Council. Mail-in ballots are available. Early voting is October 23rd and 24th, and in-person voting is November 2nd. There are 2 seats available for the City Council, and I hope you choose me for one of your votes. For further information on ways to vote, check out lisahenderson.org. Please be safe and be well.
Thank you. Mr. Cook.
Thank you to the KCA and to everybody who came to listen. I believe that my background in accounting and my urgency to want to make a difference make me a great candidate with a unique millennial perspective that's missing from the council. This is a once-in-a-lifetime election. You have 2 new, you're going to have 2 new city council members, whoever you vote for. And so for that reason, I would urge you to vote. And if you want a candidate who prioritizes the environment, if you want a candidate that will listen to you, the voter, and have your best interests in mind, then please vote for Phillip Cook on November 2nd. My website is votephillipcook.org, and you can find me on Facebook as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Mr. Belgard.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here and to answer the questions that are important to all of you Kentland residents. I wish that this could have been more of a conversation instead of all of us just up here talking. As a hopefully future elected official, the most important thing that I can do is listen and not talk. You've listened to me and all the others talk for the last hour and a half. I hope to get the opportunity to listen to each of you soon. You can reach out to me through my website. My email address is right on there, just davebelgard.com. This is a very important election. It's the first time in 40 years that there are no incumbents running for the city council, and there will be 2 new council members, and those people will be a significant force in setting the tone of our city for many years. As I said in my opening statement, I'm running for city council because I want to continue the good work that our council has done for our city. And I want to ensure that our city continues to uphold its values and commitment to diversity, equity, and supporting and building up its residents. I hope that you feel that my outlook and my voice are what you're looking for in our city's leadership, and I hope that I can earn your vote this year. Your voice and your vote are very important, so please exercise them. Vote by mail, vote early, or vote on election day. Just vote. The more of our residents that vote, the louder your voices are. Thank you again, and have a great evening.
Thank you. Those were the closing statements from our 5 city council candidates. Now for the 2 mayoral candidates. Mr. Escobar first, you have 90 seconds.
Very much. I want to thank the KCA for inviting me to this forum. I enjoyed how this forum gave me an opportunity to express my visions for the city of Gaithersburg. I look forward to meeting more residents of the Kentlands very soon during my campaign's door knocking event this weekend. Serving my country does not end with the uniform. It continues with my involvement as a candidate in this election and as a citizen of the city. As a younger candidate, I am very open-minded and willing to listen to everyone, new ideas. As a new voice, I bring a new perspective to the city. I look forward to helping the progress of this beautiful city towards a greener and brighter future. I also did want to address my second promise to all the residents in the Kentlands for the last 3 days about my statement on transparency. If you want to go to my website, voteescobar.com, you can scroll down to the bottom, you'll see my email, and you can request my tax returns for last year right there, as well as the statement on the Maryland Ethics Commission that I am in favor for the city to adopt the Maryland State Ethics Commission. Thank you very much. Vote for me November 2nd.
Thank you, Mr. Escobar. And Mr. Ashman, your 90 seconds closing.
I want to thank everybody, including my fellow candidates. And Chris, kudos to you on doing a great job moderating. It is a great honor to serve you as mayor and a great pleasure as well. I think what I bring to the table clearly is a lot of experience, a record of success, leading a team that's delivered outstanding services at a low tax rate with 0 debt. I think I also bring continuity to the table. We're going to have 2 new council members, and we're losing with our outgoing council members. We're losing a lot of institutional knowledge and proven experience, and I think we need some continuity as well. I think the state of our city is thriving, and the values that we exude every day are welcoming, and we're on the right track. So I'm asking for your vote to stay on that right track. You can find out more about me at votejud.com. Request the yard sign. If you're able to kick in a few bucks for a donation, that'd be great. You could also follow me on Facebook and on Twitter. And I look forward to seeing everybody in the neighborhood. Thank you all.
Again, thank you to all the folks who came to hear the candidates. Again, we will hopefully have this up and running on YouTube by tomorrow. And thank you to the 7 candidates and my fellow KCA board members who are here tonight. So our general manager is going to end the recording now.